Hey, yo, Peter.
Yo, what's up, Adam?
At this time, we ask you to please stand and remove your caps.
Really?
For the anthem of the podcast.
Oh, okay. Oh.
I'm Adam Manis.
And I'm Peter Martin.
And you're listening to the You'll Hear It podcast.
Music advice coming at ya.
Coming at you. This is an Open Studio podcast. Go to openstudiojazz.com for more information. Peter, we got a lot to cover today.
Yes.
In the jazz piano world. A lot going on.
This is Potpourri Tuesday.
Potpourris.
Potpourri Tuesday. Or whenever this is hitting you up in your eardrums, dear listeners.
That's right.
Hey, thank you guys. Oh, you know what? We forgot to remind folks in the last episode, but we're going to do that at the end of this episode.
Gentlemen's agreement?
Yeah. Gentleman and ladies agreement.
Okay.
I had some requests that we extended to a gentleman and ladies agreement. So we're going to talk about that at the end. So make sure you stay tuned for that. We have some exciting news.
We're also going to talk a little bit about MonoNeon's amazing national anthem.
Yes.
And we've got a little bit of advice from Roy Hargrove that has been kicking its way around the internet. But we'll start here.
Value bomb. Hello.
We're going to start with vibes, and not the good kind.
Not the good kind.
We're going to start with vibing. Peter, what do you know about vibing? You ever get vibed? Have you ever been vibed in your career?
Oh my gosh, I've gotten vibed a lot. I mean, not as much at the piano. I continue to get vibed in different situations.
Yeah, let's talk about vibing a little bit. Like, first of all, we should set up what vibing is, because there's probably a lot of people listening that don't know what vibing is. They probably experienced it, but they don't know what it's called.
Is it somewhat? Is the origins of the term in the jazz community even? Is this something that's commonly known? Do you know, producer Caleb? Is this something that the history of vibing? Well, no, I mean, like if we were to go out on the street now and say, "Hey, man, stop vibing me," would they look at us funny? Or would they understand what we're saying?
I've heard that the word vibe is out.
The word vibe is out.
That's what I've heard.
Okay.
Stop using it.
Well, Neil, that's one thing about these jazz terms, like the cats. My kids, I don't know if your kids ever say this. They always thought it was funny when they were younger, and they'd hear me talking about the cats. They were like, "Oh, that's so funny," because no one else talks about the cats.
What's up, cats?
And they're like, certain people you're on the phone with, I can tell it's one of your jazz friends. I was like, I don't have anything with jazz friends. That's all I care about, of course. They're like, I could tell it was a jazz friend because you were talking about the cats.
The cats.
So vibing is sort of like that.
Vibing. So the word vibing is out, just in general, or Caleb in the music community.
I've said it one time and someone's like, "Oh, don't say that."
Caleb, in case they can't hear what he's saying.
Yeah, someone vibed you for using the word.
So producer Caleb, in case you can't hear what he just said, he said, we got to get a mic back on.
Was it? Yeah, no, we got to get a Caleb mic. Just for the context was you were like, "Hey, this is a really good vibe," or something.
I was like, the vibe on this thing. And they're like, "Oh my God, vibe." And then I was like,
okay, so he said the vibe on this thing, Caleb was just using it casually, and they're like, "Oh, vibe. Really? Are you going to be that guy saying vibe? What is this, 2019 or something?" Yeah. Did you slap him, hopefully, right after that?
I don't know. I think it's got some connections with astrology and things like that.
Oh, connections with astrology.
Oh, interesting.
We do want to avoid that.
No.
Well, we're going to use it.
In that case, I'm okay with it. That's fine.
Well, the thing is, like, I do feel like it's always been something interesting. We haven't hit it a little bit on the pod, but not enough. And that is, phraseology and little terms that have originated in the jazz world for many years. It's kind of cool.
It is.
Actually.
That's one of them.
It's kind of hip. It's kind of dope. We love dope.
Whoa. That got vibey. No, so we should make a line in the sand here. So there's things like, oh, that's got a vibe.
Yes.
And then there's like that guy was vibing me. Those two are kind of different, although we're talking about vibrations here, right?
Yes.
And kind of the feeling of something is really what it is. But
it gets really confusing when we talk about vibing, the vibraphonist. That is weird.
Yeah, then there's vibes, which is an instrument, which is also a different thing. Yeah. But to be vibed or to vibe usually happens in the context of a playing situation.
Yes.
Where you're playing with someone who you probably don't know very well.
Right.
And
you don't deserve to be there. No.
It's most common at jam sessions.
Yeah.
And
that would be your classic vibing situation.
That would be the classic vibing scenario. Is here's let me paint the picture.
Paint the picture.
classic vibing scenario is you go to a jam session.
Yep.
You are new to maybe a beginner or intermediate player. You're a little nervous. You go sit in with more experienced musicians.
Yep.
Maybe you're not sounding your best.
Right.
And because you're nervous, or because maybe you're just not at their level yet.
Yeah.
And they give you sort of a like cold shoulder or a you don't deserve to be here kind of energy.
Yeah.
Or maybe even straight up say like, stop playing,
right.
which has happened. And that is traditionally vibing.
Yeah.
Or they'll even like, I'm not going to name names because we're friends now. But when I was a kid, I went to the jam session up the street here at Spruill's. I was 15 years old.
Yeah, you got vibed.
You got no business sitting in with Willie Aikens, but I went and sit in with Willie Aikens and his pianist at the time. Played right after me and just stared at me the whole time.
Just vibing.
Like vibing me like crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just remembering back. I'm kind of like, I've never been part of vibing, but I think I have. Like, you will hear terms, or you used to back when this was legal, of like, man, this dude came in there and he was just sad and was all, well, did you vibe him? Oh yeah, I vibed him.
Oh, it was, this was like a, it was a rite
of passage.
Well, it was a tool used for sort of policing. No. So let's talk about this because this is important.
Jazz police or a different kind of police?
No, this is definitely jazz police.
Okay.
This is definitely jazz police. But it was a tool used to sort of like quality check what was happening. And like to vibe someone was to actually like consider it a defense of the music. Of like, this person needs to know that what they're doing is not right. So it's interesting because we're talking about this because I've been seeing more and more like vibe-free jam sessions.
Yeah, no, that's a term I did not hear until about an hour ago.
Yeah, so I've been seeing this more and more, especially for like Gen Z players who are doing their own thing. And these are like jam sessions all around, the country. Even in New York City, there'll be a vibe-free jam session where we're not going to vibe. It's going to be very positive. And I think it's interesting. So like your knee-jerk right is like, oh man, that's BS or whatever, or it's soft or whatever.
Or you need some vibes in order to be self-correcting.
But that's what I'm thinking is, do you now, right? Because like, so before, the only way that people would learn how to get good at this is to just go and play. And the only feedback you got was from the people you were playing with at like a jam session or whatever. Yeah. And so vibing was like a necessary part of the process of getting better, the process of teaching the music. But now there's so many ways to teach the music and there's so many ways to learn the music that vibing might not be as relevant. Is vibing relevant when people can learn how to play in all these different ways? And is it, a mentally healthy?
Right.
I don't know. In this context, I don't know if it's necessary. I'm sure we're going to get pushback. Of course it's necessary. I'm sure we're going to get people that say like it's absolutely not necessary and why would we ever do that to ourselves? I think it was at a certain point just part of the process of doing this, and I both am terrified of those days from when I would get vibed and fond of them.
Right.
And then
whatever
also,
doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Right. Is there an element of that?
And I also understand why it's, with things like YouTube and conservatories and loads of jazz programs, even in middle school and high school, why it's like, do we really need to teach people by like shaming them essentially?
Right. Well, and I would not even push back, but I do want to make like a little bit of a marker between different kinds of vibing. Like there's a vibing which has always chafed me and irked me, which is vibing somebody that I think there are some situations where if somebody's not playing at the level they should be for where they are, and they should know better, that they can be vibed. But where it's not, what I don't like it is when it's somebody that's young or old or is the only female on stage or is part like of a different, like is not necessarily coming in with a full understanding or like part of the club. Like I hate it when there's like vibing because you're not part of the club. Like a little bit of it's almost like positive feedback versus negative feedback, right?
Carrot versus stick.
Yeah, totally. And I think that when people use that to be like, oh, you're not in the club, you're not good enough to be here, I believe in both. It's like I do believe that there's a certain level and you should respect the bandstand and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that the human element is more important, and not everybody comes with this kind of understanding. And then also, if you vibe somebody, like let's say that you had a gig and you're going to invite some people to sit in, and everybody that you had on the gig like is a pro player, and they come in and like the bass player comes in unprepared or drunk.
That's definitely grounds for vibing.
That's grounds for
if
vibing.
You're all peers and you're all working towards the goal, and someone isn't doing the work that everybody else is doing to try to make this good, and is bringing honestly the vibe down, and the vibe, not vibes, but like the energy of the music, and not respecting the music in the band and everybody's
it's a different
time.
level of expectation for them, right?
Totally.
But then
vibing is totally appropriate.
But somebody comes to sit in and they just don't. They're not quite on the level. Like, give them an energy to try to elevate them as much as possible.
Absolutely.
Don't vibe them and be like, "How dare you come up here on this stage?" Because honoring the bandstand is different for different people with different experience, different ages, different. I don't like when like older players sometimes that are having trouble because they haven't been playing a long time, but they want to be part of it. I think you meet people where they are as much as possible, but that doesn't mean I don't know that you have to have a totally vibe-free situation all the time. We can't promise that, because there is a lot of learning. I mean, for me, I got vibed on gigs for sure.
Yeah.
And like, your experience with sitting in and stuff. And I think that there is a certain amount of encouragement for yourself, in terms that you can give yourself after that. Like, no, I care about this enough that even though I got vibed, I'm gonna keep my eyes on the prize. I'm gonna go back and practice. I'm gonna get better. I'm gonna come back and vibe them with my great playing. That's a fire that can be ignited that I want young players to still have.
I do think,
hopefully.
Yeah, I do think that the benefits of kind of like surviving vibing is that you can survive. Like, nothing's worse than when an audience is vibing you.
Yeah.
And that's your ultimate
right.
That's your ultimate judge of what you're doing.
I just written that down. Vibe from the audience. That might be more important.
It's more important.
Yeah.
And if you need to be able to understand that and work your way through that and not be affected by that.
Yeah, for sure.
It'll happen.
Right.
You'll be playing a gig where you're not wanted.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes that just means you're not really noticed. That's a vibe too.
That could be a vibe.
Don't think that like, I got through this gig without being vibe. Well, were you not vibed? Were they clapping for you? Were they giving you energy? Because no vibe is bad from an audience,
Yeah. But let's
move on before we get into any more. No, sorry. Go ahead. No.
So
vibe-free sessions, are we thumbs up or thumbs down on them?
I think we're thumbs up on them. I think do what you need to do. Do whatever helps you to.
I agree.
To get better, and I like the trend of that.
And I would just say that though, for like, if you do want to keep progressing, put yourself. It's fine to go to but don't be exclusive vibe-free sessions. At least 1 out of 10 jam sessions, go to a vibing potential session.
Yeah.
Because that'll bring something else in you too. Like, we don't need to be, as players, always in the most comfortable situation, because it's harder to grow like that. Now, Don't go to somewhere where it's going to be so discouraging you're going to want to quit or whatever, but that's also on you. Like, your connection with the music has to be strong enough in order to like, you got to care about vibing yourself or not vibing yourself more than anything. If you go to a vibe-free session and you sound bad and you go home saying, well, nobody vibed me, so I must have sounded good. There's something wrong with that too.
You know who's the ultimate viber?
But in jazz, we play all the notes, 12 notes of the scale.
John Goodman.
Shit. Not 3 chords on a ukulele.
That's vibing. That's
vibing.
the definition of vibing.
That's vibing.
Let's talk a little bit about, so there was some chatter on the Jazz Piano subreddit. Shout out to all our Jazz Piano subredditors out there.
What is that? I don't even know what that is.
Reddit, the worldwide famous.
Yeah.
So it's
worldwide famous.
You know how Reddit works?
You know who the founder of Reddit is?
Yeah, he's Serena Williams' husband.
So he's kind of like, he's got some good accomplishments, in the getting married and discovering. I mean, he's
is
doing
it
all
more
right.
of an accomplishment to found Reddit or to marry Serena Williams? I think it might be the latter.
They're both top level in their own areas. So
yeah,
it's pretty good.
Like, that's high level marrying Serena. So no, there's a great active jazz piano subreddit, and there was a question specifically regarding open studio courses, which I thought we could kind of address, which was, do I need to be able to read sheet music to take open studio courses?
Yes.
And then what's so great about this is we have so many great open studio members who are all active on all of these things, and they came right in and had lots of great informed answers. So thank you everybody for addressing this person's question, but we can talk about it a little bit here too. If you're on the fence, if you're wondering about do you need to, and we don't, it doesn't even have to be open studio courses,
right?
But
just to learn
music
jazz
in
piano. Do you need
the answer is no, you do not. Any skill can help with this.
Yeah. But
you definitely don't need to know how to sight read music or to read big, thick piano music.
Like the book is thick or the notes are thick?
The notes are thick, like big old, like to be able to read. Yeah, exactly. Wow, we hit it. But no, you don't need to be able to be a great reader of music to learn how to play jazz piano at all.
Right. I mean, isn't it like, do you need to be able to read the printed page in order to be a great poet? No.
No, not necessarily.
But it might become a part of it. It's likely going to become a part of it.
Being able to read poetry would probably be beneficial, but you could also just go listen to a bunch of people reciting poetry and get added benefits. And so specifically with Open Studio, I think their confusion was, we have a lot of notation, which we love to provide because there are people who are coming from classical. There are people who never improvised. So it sort of takes some of the fear away from them. They're like, oh, I feel comfortable here. Right. There's notation with what's going on. We have our living notation system, which is Sound Slice that we embed in pretty much all of our courses at this point. There's some level of that. And that's very helpful for those people. However, if you do not read music, don't feel it's necessary. And in fact, what a lot of people on Reddit were saying, which is something that we say often in the courses, is that we have the notation here if you need it, but we encourage you to just use your ears at first.
I totally agree. And I think actually one thing that's misunderstood about this, but can be very encouraging when you come to learn anything new, especially when you're not learning it at what could be seen as a more intuitive age, like 3 or 4 or 5, where you're just jumping into something. Like if you're jumping into the water to learn how to swim or whatever, you're not worried about like what stroke. You're just learning, or like breathing or what. You're doing something potentially on a more instinctual level. So once you get past being a child and learning something, there's such a potential to over-intellectualize, overthink, paralysis by analysis, that what we find works really good. And what's been proven out from, talking to a number of wonderful jazz musicians from the very highest levels, professional to just really, really good amateur players, is that not only do you can you decouple the skill of reading music or sight reading, which is really another thing from even being able to read music, but that at the beginner level and even into the intermediate level, reading music can be a barrier unless you're very careful about how you calibrate your interaction with it.
That's right.
So it hopefully can be a very encouraging thing for people in terms of like, when you come to something and we always think about like, well, what do I not know how to do? And what's going to be my handicap into going into this? This is a perceived handicap that's actually the opposite of that, in terms of like, when you come to learn jazz, if you're not reading very well, you have an advantage.
That's right.
If you learn the right way.
That's right.
And so, but don't get it twisted and think that means that if you are able to read music, that's a handicap.
Or that you shouldn't learn to read music.
Or that you shouldn't, right. It can actually work either way. It's just that you have a little bit of advantage because you don't have to sublimate that skill as you learn in order to train your ears. So it's a very interesting thing, and I'm glad people are kind of talking about it. And I think that, I think back to, I came up in the Suzuki method. I'm a big proponent of that, and that has nothing to do with jazz, but I think it's a wonderful method. I was just talking to some young parents.
For those of you who don't know, that method starts with ear training.
Starts with ear training. It starts by learning everything by ear, learning at an age where it would kind of be potentially debilitating, or at least, counter to progressing on the violin. In the case that I actually learned it on violin before piano, where you're so young that you have an ability to kind of absorb and to imitate and learn an instrument at a pretty amazing level. You can go on YouTube and put in Suzuki young, amazing kid and see incredible stuff, but they can't read any music yet.
Yeah.
And had they learned music, that would have slowed them down. So we think, oh, that's just for little genius kids. No, if you read Nurtured by Love by Shinichi Suzuki, and it's very clearly laid out how this is for anybody. You have to nurture children. We have to nurture ourselves to become adolescents and toddlers, adolescents, adults, or whatever, that have musical sensitivity and a connection with our heartbeat and all these things, that we can actually all do that. And a lot of times that's decoupling this whole reading music thing. So I think it's a fascinating thing. I've thought about it a lot in different ways of approaching music.
That's great. Let's move on here to an event from this past week that, man, I really want to check out, which is, the bassist and insanely great artist based in Memphis, Tennessee, MonoNeon.
Right. And I guess I did know he was from Memphis. I didn't know he was still based there, but I'm a huge fan and have been. I've got this actually pulled up.
He just played the national anthem, sang and played on the bass the national anthem at the Memphis Grizzlies game, which you were just down there.
Right. Not for this game, unfortunately.
No, you just missed. I was going to say,
just in the building.
Just missed it.
Yeah, let's check this out.
But this is one of probably the coolest and most unique national anthems since Jimi Hendrix at Woodstock.
Memphis's own MonoNeon.
Love it already.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so
Swinging, man.
beheld at the twilight
Wah wah pedal, right?
last gleaming
Looks like it.
frost shrine
Yep.
and bright stars through the perilous fight. Oh, the
Rabbits.
we were so
Fully knit, quilted,
He has a quilt on his head.
a knitted balaclava in a fully knitted outfit.
I love your terminology. Strong groove, strong time. That's
So strong.
a time clinic.
Jeez Louise. I love this arrangement.
This is gutsy to go rubato at this point.
Well, he wants to bring it
That's
home
great.
in a way that is landing, which I think is good.
Yeah.
the land and of the free and the home of the brave.
Flat nine action. That was killing. That was killing. I'm a fan. That was really good.
It's so good.
And I mean,
So
you know
good.
what was cool about that too was, the arrangement. How he started out with, he had that little bit of a kind of out of time intro.
Yeah.
which is a great way to get in when you're in. Look, whenever you do, I've seen great performers do the national anthem and like seasoned performers. It's nerve wracking because it's so different, and a lot of times they're forcing them to play to a track. He wasn't there, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But at least have like a backup track. Like there's a lot of stuff going on. The sound is whack. It's bouncing back at you.
Have you ever done it?
No.
Have you never-
I've accompanied a couple singers doing some pretty big national anthems.
Nice.
But the biggest one I ever did, we actually pre-recorded. Am I allowed to say? Everybody knows this stuff is
Yeah,
pre-recorded. For the Olympics in Salt Lake City.
Oh yeah.
The
Winter
Diane
Olympics
Reeves
in-
sang at the opening ceremonies.
2002.
2000, yeah, maybe something like that. Yeah, exactly.
maybe? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and she was out on ice and the whole thing as she did it,
Wow.
and she was just like, "I want to sing it, live." And they were like, "1 billion people are watching this. You can sing whatever you want, but we need to pre-record it in case something happens, and we're going to mix it in and out." And I think a lot of times they do it on those really big productions. So we just went in and recorded. But it's but he did this great technique for anyone who's in a situation. Just play a few chords to kind of, I don't know, maybe he planned that, but he just played that a little bit at the beginning before he went right into it, which is so cool.
Just if
and
you
then hit the time.
If you've ever done it on a big stadium like that, it is so weird because it's not like you're playing a show at a big stadium and you have like in-ear monitors or whatever.
Right.
You don't get to hear yourself very well.
Right.
You're just hearing it swirl.
Have you done it at the
around.
baseball at the Busch Stadium?
I've been on the field when Aaron Bodie was singing it.
Yeah.
I wasn't a part of it. She just had extra field passes, so I was just down there, and it was like weird.
Yeah.
Really weird.
Yeah, what you're hearing back is strange.
And then we did it. The 442s, my band did it for the St. Louis Blues game, the hockey game.
Okay.
Which is probably about equivalent to that as far as size.
Arena size.
And we were playing this like where it's a string thing, so like it was that was actually really cool because I did an arrangement that was like very like aggressive kind of, which I think works with that crowd for sure. But it was still weird because you're just hearing it slap back at you, seconds later, like 2 seconds later.
Did the four of you get it when you finished it? Did you guys get into a fight on the ice? Doesn't
yeah.
that typically happen?
Yeah, I pulled Bjorn's jersey over his head and threw a couple of haymakers. Yeah,
Right. Well, that was cool.
yeah, it was very cool
Big shout out to MonoNeon.
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, so he's somebody I think that doesn't get enough. I mean, a lot of people know him, and he gets, just because of his outfits
I think he's
and
brilliant,
his
man.
look. A lot of people think it's a gimmick, but like he's such a great player.
One of my most favorite bands, like my top 5 bands of all time, is Parliament Funkadelic. Those projects.
I think he's ever heard of them.
Yeah. So like
Or
for
seen
me,
them?
For me, I'm just so happy that people are still Funky.
I think the rest of the stuff we can save till next time. I hate to even say that because we got to talk about what we promised them. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Why are you looking at me funny?
I'm not looking at
Okay.
you.
We got to talk about the gentleman and ladies agreement.
Gentleman's agreement.
Do you know about this?
Let's do it.
Okay. No, do you know what the gentleman's and ladies
I agree.
agreement is?
I'm agreeing.
This is, for those of you that are new to the pod, I'm going to get a little bit serious. Can I put my serious cap on here?
Sure.
I got my serious cap on. Social bubble.
Is that a serious cap, though? That doesn't look like a
It's
serious cap.
cap.
That's a nice one. Is that new?
This is new.
Yeah, it looks good.
We'll talk about it after the pod because we're talking about the gentleman and the ladies agreement.
Okay.
This is when you guys agree. Okay, the reason this gentleman comes out of gentleman's agreement is because you're not here to shake our hand. We're not here to have you sign something. This is how in the old days they would do before there was DocuSign.
Okay.
We're not going to email our listeners anything.
No.
But you're here listening. If you made it this far in the podcast, you've gotten some of that. We dropped some value bombs today, right?
I would like to
Well,
think
if not
so.
today, the last episode
I would like
for
to
sure.
think so. Yeah.
And so all we ask for you, we don't even ask. This is a requirement. This is part of the agreement. We require for you to go to YouTube. Okay?
YouTube.
Because I figure out this is the easiest thing for people to do. Go to
Okay.
YouTube, find the You'll Hear It podcast. You're going to have
Right.
to be able to spell.
What
That's
if they're
part of
on
the
YouTube?
gentleman's.
People are watching right now.
If you're watching right now, you're going to subscribe.
Okay.
You're going to press like. And if you've already done that, you're going to leave a comment saying gentleman's agreement done or ladies agreement done.
So you leave a comment saying gentleman's agreement done.
Gentleman/ladies agreement or whatever you want.
Okay.
Let them choose.
Okay.
Yeah. Agreement done.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
No, but I'm sure.
Why not?
it
Because
does-
because we've already put this out there for them. And the reason is we're trying to grow the YouTube channel. We're also, if you want to like leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we encourage that as well. That takes a little more effort. So we're not requiring that as part of the
I'm
gentleman's
just saying it's the
agreement.
most open studio thing ever. Literally, what you're describing here is how content is made and produced and spread. Is
Right.
that people put up free content and then other people like and subscribe. And Open Studio, i.e., you and me, are putting a new
We're putting a new
funky
twist
name
on it. And we
called the
did steal
Gentleman's
this,
Agreement.
but I found out who I stole this from. I wasn't going to mention them. I stole this from another podcast that I like, but I found they talked about the gentleman's agreement. I was like, we're
Okay.
stealing this.
Okay.
But it turns out they stole it from another podcast they admitted. So it's not stealing anymore, right?
It's just part of the culture.
It's part of our gentleman's agreement. So
Okay.
anyway, until next time.
You'll hear it.
I'm in Steamboat Springs, Colorado currently.
I'm in Indianapolis.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Andrew.
Hi.
Because I feel inspired to play something else from your playing.
Okay, that's great.
I think using the metronome is a great tool, but it's not the only tool.
All of the answers are really in the music.
What does it mean to live in a groove, be in a groove?
Until next time, happy practicing.